Hola, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos otra vez a la clase de español con la profesora Che. On this video, you're going to learn chapter 6, 6.2, indirect object pronouns. It's a very grammatical topic. You will have to refresh a lot of your memory from elementary school when you learned what is the subject, verb, direct object, indirect object, etc., etc. So the lecture will be loaded with that kind of information. I strongly suggest that you pay attention and take notes, and always use your textbook, as my lecture is based off the book. And if you think I'm going too fast, you know what to do. You can pause, take the time you need to digest the information that's in front of your screen, on the screen in front of you, and let me know if you have any questions. I hope this video helps you understand the topic better, and I always encourage the students to watch the animated tutorial video that you'll see once you log into VHL Central. Okay, so let's begin. Let me share the screen, my PowerPoint with you. Okay, we are on 6.2 indirect object pronouns. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to analyze some sentences, and we're going to identify the subject, the verb, the direct object, and the indirect object. The direct object nouns, it should be fresh in your head. You just took a test. You just had a test, and this was from chapter 5. So hopefully you still remember some information about this. And what we are going to add today is the indirect object nouns and pronouns. All right, so I want you to write down the information you see here under analysis of a sentence. I want you to write who and subject, verb, action / state of being and experience, what / whom, direct object, to / for whom, indirect object, because I'll be asking these questions throughout today's lecture as we analyze some sentences. Okay, so in order for you to identify the subject of a sentence, then you gotta ask the question who. The who of the sentence is the subject, okay? As you can see in this example, Roberto le presta 100 pesos a Luisa. Roberto lends 100 pesos to Luisa. So if I ask you, what is the subject of the sentence? The question you should ask is who? Who lends 100 pesos to Luisa? Who is doing that? Roberto, right? The answer to the who of the sentence is the subject of the sentence. And in Spanish, and also true in English, the subject always matches with the verb. Okay, it's presta from prestar. We are taking the A ending because it's conjugated to Roberto. Okay, so the subject and the verb, they always match. Okay, you need to conjugate the verb according to the subject, and the subject is the who of the sentence. Okay, now what is a verb? I mean, that's the easy one. Verbs are mostly used to describe an action, you know, what happens, who's doing what, you know, it's about doing something. Sometimes it's also used to describe a state of being or experience, you know, especially with the verb to be, you know, it would be more like a description, you know, like I am tired, you know, I am tired, you know, I am happy, etc., etc. So those are you know, some examples of state of being and experience, but mainly a verb is used to describe an action, you know, what the action of the sentence, what is happening. So if you look at this example, Roberto le presta 100 pesos a Luisa. What is the action there? What is actually happening? That is prestar, right? To lend. So that's the verb of the sentence. Now let's look at the next part. What is the direct object noun of the sentence? The direct object noun. And from the previous lesson, you all learned that the what or the whom of the sentence is the direct object noun. So what is the what or the whom? Right here, they're talking about 100 pesos, right? They're talking about money. So I'm guessing that this is the direct object noun. I'm guessing that because it follows the verb. So let's, confirm, let's verify that this is the direct object noun. And how do I do that? By asking the question, what? Okay, so what does Roberto lend? What does he lend? The money, 100 pesos, right? So since 100 pesos is the answer to the question, the what, it is the direct object. And what is the indirect object? What is an indirect object? In this sentence, Luisa is the indirect object. And right here it says the to whom or for whom of the sentence is the indirect object noun. Okay, it's the indirect object of the sentence. The indirect object is the answer to the to whom or for whom the action is being done. Usually, the recipient of the direct object, the person who receives the direct object, is the indirect object noun of the sentence. It answers the question, to whom? To whom is the money being given? To Luisa, right? Therefore, this is the indirect object. For whom is the money being given? To whom? For whom is the money? Who is the recipient of the direct object? 100 pesos. Luisa is the one who's going to be benefit by this action, right? She is the recipient of the money that they're talking about here. Therefore, Luisa is the indirect object, okay? So in order for you to identify the indirect object noun of a sentence, you must ask the question, to whom or for whom is the action being done, okay? Who is the recipient of the direct object? The person who receives the direct object is the indirect object noun. Now you may ask, then what is le? Well, this is the trace of Luisa. It is the indirect object pronoun. And as you all know, what pronouns do is they take place of nouns. So le is what? A shadow, I would say a shadow of Luisa. When you translate this into English, it'll be to her or for her. Okay, so Roberto lends 100 pesos to her. Okay, so this le is what is taking place of Luisa. Okay, and it translates into to her. Okay, all right. So remember again, if I ask you, okay, identify the subject of a sentence, then if you don't know, you gotta ask who, right? And sometimes the subject of a sentence in Spanish is not always explicit because we are allowed to omit the subject of a sentence. And if the context is clear, you are allowed to say, le presta 100 pesos a Luisa. You can omit Roberto, if there is no ambiguity, if the context is clear that everybody knows that it's talking about Roberto, you are allowed to do that. However, that doesn't mean that sentence doesn't have a subject. It still does. How do you know that there is a subject? You look at the verb and you look at the conjugation, okay? You look at the conjugation to identify the subject of the sentence, and the subject is the who of the sentence. Okay, so again, this is very important that you understand how to analyze a sentence, especially the topic that we are covering today, because as I said, this is very like grammatical, I would say. We are teaching you how to analyze each part of a sentence, and in order for you to fully understand what an indirect object noun is and what a direct object noun is, then it's crucial to understand this relationship. Again, this is the what or the whom. This is to whom, okay, or for whom sometimes. To whom is the action being done. for whom is the action being done? Usually it is the recipient of the direct object noun. So if you are still taking notes, I want you to pause the video, take the time that you need. I'm going to assume that you are ready to move on to the next slide. Okay, so let's do some practice here to see you really understood the concept. Identify the subject, verb, direct object, and indirect object of each sentence. So number one, yo te doy muchos problemas. What is the subject? What is the subject of the sentence? If you forgot, what question to ask to identify the subject, look at your notes. What does it say? It's the who, right? It's the who of the sentence. So who gives you a lot of problems according to this sentence? Who gives a lot of problems? Who? Is it me or you? It's me. This is the subject of the sentence because, again, the subject always matches with the verb, and doy is yo doy, I give. This is the yo form of dar. So it's yo doy muchos problemas. Yo te doy muchos problemas. So yo is the subject, is the who of the sentence. What is the verb? What's the action here? The action is to give, right? So doy is the verb. What is muchos problemas? That's what is being given. So that's the what of the sentence. Therefore, it is the direct object noun, muchos problemas. And what is the indirect object pronoun? You gotta ask, to whom are the problems being given? To whom? To whom are the problems being given? Who is the recipient of these problems? According to this sentence, is te. Okay, this is to you. All right, to you. That's how we say to you in Spanish, te. This is not tú. Tú is you. Te is to you or for you. So I give many problems to you. You is the recipient of my problems. Therefore, this is the indirect object. Okay, let's do number two. Let's do it quickly. What is the subject? Ask who. Who's writing many text messages? You, tú. And remember, in Spanish, you can omit tú. You can say, nos escribes muchos textos without tú in there, and that is perfectly grammatical sentence. That doesn't mean that the subject doesn't exist. It's still there. How do you know? You look at the verb, and it'll tell you, oh, escribes is tú escribes. So the subject is tú. You write many texts. This is the verb, the action, right? And muchos textos, many texts. This is the direct object noun. This is the what of the sentence. And who's receiving many text messages? For whom are these messages are being written? Who's receiving the messages? Us. This is to us. Okay, so the translation will be, you write many text messages to us. Okay, so it looks like nosotros. Nosotros is what? We. Nos is to us and for us. All right. Number three, what is the subject? Usted. Okay, usted always matches to the verb, dice. You tell the truth, always. The verb is dice, from decir. And what is la verdad? The truth. So what do you tell me all the time? The truth. This is the what of the sentence. Therefore, this is the direct object, right? What is the indirect object then? To whom do you tell the truth? To whom? To me. All right, so me is to me. That's what it means. Usted me dice la verdad siempre. And again, you can delete usted and begin your sentence. Me dice la verdad siempre. You can begin the sentence with me. Okay, that doesn't mean that the subject changes to me. The subject will still be usted, because you got to look at the verb conjugation to identify the subject of a sentence. Okay, so you automatically know that me can't be the subject of a sentence as it doesn't match. Okay, all right, so you got to always remember that. In Spanish, the word order is deceiving as they move around. You can place usted at the end of a sentence. You can delete it. You know, you can put it after the verb, or you can even put it after la verdad. So the word order in Spanish is not as reliable as it is in English. Okay, in English, you know, word order is always the same, but in Spanish, you know, these elements, especially the subject, you know, adjectives and adverbs, they always move around. So look at the verb conjugation to identify the who of the sentence. Okay, so you avoid translating a sentence. So I'm gonna stop here. You know, if you think you need to take notes, pause the video. I'm gonna assume that you paused the video or you're done. I'm gonna move on to the next page. Okay, so what are the indirect object pronouns? I mean, we know what they are. You know, the words that answer the question to whom, right, or for whom are the indirect object pronouns. They're used to indicate the recipient of the direct object of a sentence. You know, it indicates, you know, to whom or for whom an action is being done. So in English, you say to me or for me. In Spanish, you say me. To you, for you, you are speaking informally. You know, you were to talk to a friend, you know, then say te. And for le, you gotta be a little you gotta be a little more careful, as le can be to you, to him, or to her. Okay, so there are two ways of saying to you, informally and formally. You use te, or you can use te. If you're to talk to me, Professor Che, then you wanna speak formally. So te sounds a little bit rude, I would say. You know, if you're talking to someone that you don't have casual relationship with, then you should always use le, and that means you. It can also be him and her. So you gotta provide further context to clarify who you are referring to. Okay, and nos is to us or for us. Os is used in Spain. That's to you guys or for you guys. And as les has more than one meaning. That's to you guys. You know, if you are referring to multiple people, to you guys. Or it can also be to them. Okay, to them. It can be a group of male, female mixed, or it can be a group of just female or just male, right? Just means them. So you might ask, then Professora Che, how am I, if I were to translate a sentence that has le, then how do you know what the correct translation is? It can be to you, to him, to her, to you guys, and to them, you know, then how do I know? Well, you gotta look at the context. You gotta look at the words around the sentence for you to know the subject. I'm sorry, to know who le is being referred to. So let me give you some examples here. If I ask you to translate le vende la ropa, who's le here? We don't know, right? Because there's no context, It can be to you, it can be to him or to her. So what you do is you provide this additional information to clarify who le is. Ella le vende la ropa a Elena. Okay, because a Elena, this one will be translated as to her. So she is selling the clothes to her. Without a Elena, we'll be lost because we don't know. So this is the context that I'm, talking about. Ella le vende la ropa a Jorge. The same as the previous sentence. The only difference is the person. It's Jorge. So there is this additional information. Now we know that this is to him. What if you have usted? Then it becomes to you. All right. So ella le vende la ropa, or le vende la ropa is an ambiguous sentence. It can lead to more than one translation. It requires more context. And how do you provide more context, or how do you clarify this le? By adding this extra information. This a is not optional. You must always use before the person. Okay. So ella le vende la ropa a Elena. Ella le vende la ropa a usted. If there's a clear context, let's say there is a previous paragraph where, the context was established. The context has been already established in the previous paragraph. Then you might not need to add this extra information. Okay, so this is all context. We need the context. And the next screen is same concept. With less, as less can be to them or to you all. You have to provide more information. So if you're to use less as to you all, yo les escribo una carta a ustedes. I'm writing a letter to you all. So this one, it will be translated as you all, to you all, because of this information, a ustedes. Yo les escribo una carta a María y a Sonia. Now we know that les means to them, right? Yo les escribo una carta. I'm writing a letter to them. Okay, so les, again, can be used to refer to a group of female or group of just male or male and female. And again, les escribo una carta is ambiguous, as it can be more than one thing. It can be for them or to them or to you all. So you got to provide this extra information. And don't forget this before the specific names. Okay, so you can pause if you need to take more time. I'm going to move on. Okay, now let's talk about where to place these pronouns. And this is a continuation. I should say this is a repetition of what you've learned in chapter 5 with the direct object pronouns. We place them before the verb, right? And that's going to be the same with the indirect object pronouns. They always come before the verb. If it's a negative sentence, doesn't matter, it still be before the verb. So nothing can interfere. Me and escribe, okay, they always go together. If you were to say no, you put it no before me, okay. Eva no me escribe cartas. But if you have two verbs, like él no te quiere pagar, how many verbs do you see? 1 and 2. Do you guys remember that we moved the pronoun, the direct object pronoun, to the front and to the end of a sentence? And you have the same option here. Él no te quiere pagar. He doesn't want to pay you. Él no te quiere pagar. Or you can bring te to the end of pagar, attach it to pagar, and write it as one word. Él no quiere pagarte. And that is also correct. So you choose the style that you prefer. They will be both correct. I use both interchangeably, and you will hear a lot of native speakers do the same thing. They're both standard, they're both common. So I recommend that you learn both forms. But if you say, this is so hard, I just want to remember one form, then I would definitely recommend that you go with this one, as this always works, okay? Whether there are two verbs or one verb, it will always go before the verb. And when you are writing a present progressive sentence like this one, the same rule applies. You can bring le, before está, which is the first verb, or you can attach it to the ing form, escribiendo, and write it as one word. So, él está escribiéndole una postal a ella. Okay, so you can add this le to escribiendo. And when you do that, don't forget to write an accent mark, okay, on the E, as you are adding an additional syllable right here. We are changing the pronunciation. The rule dictates that this should be the syllable, right, that you stress and say escribiéndole, but that's not how we speak. We want to maintain the original pronunciation of escribiendo. So escribiéndole una postal a ella, in order to maintain the original pronunciation, the original stress, even after an additional syllable has been added, you need to mark the vowel with an accent mark. If you don't want to worry about this, accent mark thing, then always remember to put it before, okay? Él está escribiendo una postal. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to here. Okay, we're almost done. So I'm going back to the direct object pronouns. Now we all know how to say to me, to you, to him, etc., etc. me, te, le, nos, os, and les, right? And you know where to place them. You place them always before a verb, okay? Me compras una mochila. Now, let's say you want to emphasize, okay? You want to emphasize that it's me to whom the action is being done. What you can do is you can add this additional information. I will say additional phrase, a mí. What a mí means is same as me. It means to me. It's just a different way of saying to me. And we already hear right here, to me, right? Why would you repeat to me and to me in two different ways? Because there, for some reason, you see the need of emphasizing to whom the action is being done. Okay, to whom the action is being done, to whom is the direct object noun being given. I mean, you decide as a speaker, as the person who's speaking at the time, what is that needs to be emphasized. And if you feel that, oh, I need to emphasize that it's me to whom they're going to give the gift, then you may say a mí, okay? Me compras una mochila a mí. So this is for emphasis. You can also bring a mí in the beginning of a sentence and say, a mí me compras una mochila. All right? So this additional phrase that you use for emphasis, you can place it at the end of a sentence, or you can bring it in the front and say a mí, a ti, a nosotros, and a vosotros. Again, all these phrases, a mí, a ti, a nosotros, and a vosotros, are optional. It's only when the person who's speaking at the time see or feel or wants to emphasize, the information to whom or for whom. And as I said in the previous slide, for le and les, because of the ambiguity, because you want to avoid any ambiguity that it can create, le, a lot of times you will see or you'll use le with this additional phrase, for clarification. You can put a pronoun like this, le compro una mochila a él. You can put a name if you want to, le compro una mochila a José. Okay? Le compro una mochila a ella, o le compro una mochila a María. Le compro una mochila a usted. All right, so I covered this in the previous slide. So you might want to go back if you already forgot, what these a él, a ella, and etc. Are for le and les. Okay, and if you remember the verb gustar, we said you can say a mí me gustan los tacos, or me gustan los tacos a mí, or you can simply say me gustan los tacos. It all depends on what kind of information you want to emphasize. And in Spanish, these additional phrases help emphasize a part of speech, like the indirect object pronoun, which means to me. All right. When you translate this word for word in English, I don't think it makes much sense, because basically what it's saying is, to me, you are buying a backpack. To me. You are saying to me twice. To me, you are buying a backpack. It sounds funny, right? But in Spanish, that's how we speak. And again, a mí and a mí can be omitted if there's no need for emphasis. Okay, and we're almost finished. Let me add just an additional explanation here. Verbs that require an indirect object pronoun. Verbs that require an indirect object pronoun. So when do we use an indirect object pronoun? Do we have to use them? Do we have to use it all the time? No, you have to examine the meaning of a verb, and certain verbs will require this extra information. It's not just enough to mention who and the what, the who and the what of the sentence. In order to make the idea complete, you gotta include this additional information, to whom or for whom. And these are just some of many examples. These are the verbs that are commonly used with the direct object pronouns: to give, to loan, or to lend; vender, to sell; to pay, to buy; to write; to show; to say; and to explain. Because of what they mean, because of what the verb means, in order for you to make the idea complete, you will have to include or mention an indirect object pronoun or a noun of a sentence. So, tell me what you think about this sentence and tell me if the idea is complete on each one of them. I give the book. I give the book. I understand, but is this idea complete? With give, you normally include to whom the book is being given. So I give you the book. I give the child the book. I give my mom the book. All right. Then with that indirect object noun, the sentence is more complete. I tell the truth. I tell the truth, but to whom? Right? When you tell something, you tell something to somebody. So in order to make this one a little more complete, then you gotta use the indirect object pronoun. I'll show my car. When you show something to someone, right? So you gotta include to someone, to whom. I write a letter. I'm writing a letter, but to whom or for whom? Who's gonna receive my letter? Once you add that information, to whom, the idea is gonna be more complete, more clear, understand better. The communication is better, and we will clearly understand, what the message is, what message is trying to convey the speaker. The speaker tries to convey. So I hope you understood the grammar, the grammatical concept, the indirect object pronouns, and hopefully this lesson helps you do well on your homework. All right. Okay, so watch it again if you need to. And I think that's it for now. And I'm going to let you go. Bye. Adios.